Hola. And finally online. Brain's a little bit wonky this morning. But that's okay. We're going to do a Cogah run. Hopefully and successfully. Well done. Which will be great. I do have an idea of what I'm going to be doing. So, it's going to be a magic caster. It is going to be using Tetherin. Just so I can pretty much smash every single boss in the game like, really, really well. So we're going to move into Tetherin, which I think I've misspelled, but that is okay. Hopefully it translates over to the build relatively well. I believe that we've got an update on the armor as well, which is great. So this is the new, fresh-looking Tetherin male form of the Tetherin armor, which is great. We'll go check out the Siren. Don't believe I've got a setup on that yet, which I haven't. So I'm going to switch over to Bromius, and then we're going to put the Siren outfit on. Actually, I will keep Bromius. It's the Oshelda that I'm looking for. So I want to showcase that before we begin. And there have been quite a few extensive quality of life things happen within the latest patch. And hotfix, which is nice. So let's have a look at the Oshelda. I believe that's a Siren helmet. And this is the male form of the Oshelda getup. So it makes him look more wizardy. Still kind of looks like a clown, but that's okay.
I said.
I think it's a much better design, especially with like the cloaky thing hanging out the back. That's nice. I still feel like the front of the pants could probably change, but that's just my way of thinking.
I know.
On this particular armor set, it does look a lot better, which is nice. Alright, so Tetherin, we're going to wear this outfit because it looks beefy, it looks good, and it's very warlocky, and I really enjoy it. So I don't know if I want to wear the pants of the Tetherin, but I certainly do want to wear the big bulky man gear, which will be nice. So I'm going to just do a little bit of fashion, and then we'll get started on the Cogah run.
Envoy, your aura is smelling rather drab today. N'est-ce pas, Puppets?
Which will be nice. So we're going to reset that. And then we'll play a little bit with the Bastion. So we'll do red. Why? Because we can. Actually, I'm going to do all black on that. I think that'll look nice. And then we'll just do all black on the armor. I really like this armor. It's awesome. And I always like gold trim. Basically being a prime, you know?
The puppets approve.
I guess we could do a black mage, couldn't we?
The envoy. It brings us a nibble? Then tell it we are busy.
Alright.
Bring us back a morsel next time, hmm?
We're gonna do a dark mage run.
My palate is so very dry.
Very cool. Alright. So there's that done. I believe that we've got another medallion built.
I know.
I'm pretty sure.
How can I do better?
Molten Mora. Almost done. I do need to go to the Outpost Children at some point and get their medallion. It's not a huge rate deal at the moment, though. Okie dokie. Well, let's have a look at Tetherin. So, we've got maxed out Courage, maxed out Everbound for health. Last Stand, we can deal with that. Mostly we're going to be going for defense against Dagger and Conquer, which will be absorbing life, which will be nice. And then, as far as the actual setup goes, I am going to keep roughly around 15 Grace. It's not going to do too much. Spirit, I'll just base it 10, but I will basically max out Courage as much as I possibly can at the current state. I am going to use the upgrade with the Cogah Lorcan with the Courage +2 and the Attack +10, which will be great. Let's have a look. So we've got a lot more health now, which is nice to see that. So that does look like that's been added on top of what we had before. Spirit, it does take a dive, but again, you don't really need Spirit at all for this particular pact. So I am going to boost my Courage to 40. And I am going to use the Elder Staff. Actually, I lie. No, we will. I will use the Arcstorm Rune for safety reasons. Still, to this current hotfix, as of testing yesterday, this rune still destroys the Argaric mushrooms from the bosses, which is unfortunate because this rune is very fun to use, although dangerous for rune drops and the Argaric mushrooms. So, for safety reasons, I'm just going to use the Arcstorm Rune, which is really great, and then I am going to run with the Estelle. I love these runes, but again, I'm going to be using the Arcstorm. So I'm going to put physical armor, magical armor, additional smite chance, and attack speed, just so we can pump out that damage a lot more. So we've got an overall 99 armor, which will be nice, and we've also got that boost of defense against Dagger from Rooted, which is nice. So we do have a few extra little points, plus 21 from Courage, boosting into this, so we can achieve a much higher Courage rating and damage output. So that's going to help a lot with the Cogah run. So I am going to start with the Mother Orb, and then I'm going to work my way down to the map, to the end where the lovely Mendicant King is. So I'll just have a bit of a run and play around just to kind of see how things are running with this build. And it's not, by no means is it maxed out. It doesn't really need to be, but I can change up to different weapons as we go along, but I still think being a caster, at heart, I have not run an entire run being a caster just yet, so I'm going to play a lot with these casting abilities today too, which will be nice. And the Estelle are basically my Courage backup of damage output, which is really nice because the Alta staff at the moment is more of a spirit-based staff, which is nice. So I'm just going to adjust the sound down for you guys a bit. Alright, there we go. Alright, Mother Orb, I come to thee. I have been looking at doing a potential run with a different Courage-based weapon though. It is not the Elder Staff, but it is a magic weapon.
The envoy nears.
So, what I'm going to do
Continue after.
is grab this. Before I do that, I will go get some weapon slots from the Capitalist Camel. 2 to be exact. So, there we go. 1 and 2. I'm going to wait until the new update comes through for the new event, which will hopefully be coming soon, next week, hopefully. And then I will know how many of the weapon slots to purchase as well. So I'm going to come back over here I'm going to go to Assembled Earthroot. We're going to claim that. And I'm also going to claim the Gwillin. And I'm going to have a very good reason for doing this. I have been wanting to test out a different style of weapon. So basically what I'm looking at doing is revamping these particular styles over to the A-Bolt Joinery of Courage, which I don't have at the moment. So what I'm going to do instead is build that with a Gildor. I'm going to level that, and then I'm actually going to go get a Feybolt Blessed by Mora, and then I'm going to apply this to the Earthroot Staff, which will be nice. So I just want to double check before I commit to that. I want to see a few more bits and pieces. So we have the Feybolt Polished, which is our original staff. So I'm going to maintain this one at the moment, but then I'm going to just revamp this one with Lifesteal. Actually, I lie. I'm just going to leave these staffs alone for now, because once I've got the Blessed by Mora Joinery from the Kith of Kings, I need to save up a little bit more rep. So that's the plan moving forward with the two alternate extra weapons. I've just been able to build the Earthroot and the Gwillin, because I do want to see how they perform with the Courage base of the Virtue and the damage application for those weapons. So I think it will be very fun. Ideally, I would like to have the older staff be shifted over to Courage, which I can do, but for now, because it's such a unique weapon, you can only really get the one weapon. So I'm going to maintain that as Spirit. It won't be punching out as much damage because it is Spirit based, and I don't have a huge amount of Spirit applied to the current setup that I have. It's predominantly Courage based. So we're basically going to be essentially relying on Estelle for the most part of this run. Estelle though is still really nice, so I could end up bringing the Earthroot Staff if I really wish to, so I can switch freely between Gwillin, the Elder Staff, and the Earthroot Staff, which is pretty nice. So basically maintaining a full caster build, but based on Tetherin, will be quite fun. Hopefully I don't get my ass whooped by the end of this Cogah run. We'll see, because I've only got one potion at the moment, which I should probably double check. I should actually have a secondary one available to me, but I will do that check after I've taken on Etheldred. Let us begin. Okie dokie. Alright, we'll see how quickly we can take her down. Of course she jumps out of the way. There's our first boss of the run. Lovely. Relatively easy done, which is great. And interestingly enough, being part of the Kith of Kings, the functionality of the end stance is still basing itself off the shoulder, which I would assume is going to be corrected. So I have taken note of that as well. So now we'll move on to this one. The good old Banneret. We do love her. Flame wielding, super vicious, can bonk you out of this world with her club. I would essentially love to be using the Hollowing Rune. However, I would be very mindful of using it against bosses still.
5 commons each. Let's kill tanks the night.
And she's dead. The Dark Jedi. Hello. I can't get following ring to drop for the life of me. Yeah, that's just RNG, my friend. It will eventually drop. That is something that is out of everyone's control, unfortunately, is the RNG drop chances. It is very fun, and I've had a really good response of putting the information up on that particular rune the last 24 to 48 hours. It has gained a lot of traction on the socials, so if you are keen to check that out, I'll just chuck that into the socials there for you guys. So there's the one for the Twitch Ola, and the YouTube should be coming through for you now. And that is also the Soulframe stuff as well. The link tree is probably the most valuable of those links that's coming through. Alright, so what we'll do now is jump into the Nell Knight. Relatively straightforward. Super easy, dude. Just throw some stuff out of him. The compound damage from Tetherin is crazy good too. And there's that dead boss. Indeed, I do use the Feybolt for a very good reason. Plus 20 compounding consecutive damage output, but also the casting range. Reasons being is because you get compounding damage, not just from the Fellist and the Tetherin. You get the boost of damage output with Courage, but you also get a casting totem, plus 15%. On all of your magic weapons, which is this guy here, the Spirited. And then on top of that, in your combat arts, with your magic tree, you also have Grounded, which increases casting speed when standing still. So the damage output and the smite application is very, very good. So this is how I built into the magic combat arts, but also built all of my magic weapons around the Feybolt blessed by Mora Joinery. So you get the damage plus 20. It does say damage, but that is the Gildor blessed by Mora, because I don't have the Feybolt blessed by Mora just yet. But on this Odiak, I do. So I've got the Feybolt blessed by Mora, plus 20 consecutive attack damage, and throw distance is plus 5, which is sensational. I'm not using a huge amount of spirit on this build. There's no reason to. It may affect the Call of Ancients to a slight degree, but as far as I'm aware, the virtues are just not applying as equally along the use factor of, say, Duration and Grace. So Courage, as far as I'm aware at the moment, is the only viable, useful virtue, where Spirit and Grace are still a little bit lacking, as in, the more points you use, you're only getting really percentile increases of duration use and also range for abilities from your packs that you use. So whatever ones that you use at the moment, they are workable still, but as far as I'm aware, the virtues just aren't really as fleshed out after this P12 update, which is a shame. So it's not to say it's going to stay like that forever. It will not. It's just waiting to see what happens with the hotfixes that will come through. So that's the reason why I'm using and focusing more on Tetherin, because it's actually, for the most part, the most viable use of the virtues currently. So hopefully we get to see an increment of usage with the spirit duration and also the greater range for abilities returned. So I'm sure that that's being worked out. So hopefully by next week we will see a little bit of a shift within that. Okily dokily. We are off to Bunny Hop, off to the Weatherwood Forest. And I also keep in mind, Mr. Kabocha really doesn't like magic damage, or any damage really being thrown at him. But we will be able to bypass that to a certain degree. I also would really love to see these trees be highlighted the way that they are with the other trees that just look normal, with the actual webbit sap that's sitting at the base of them. There's a few different trees around this glade area where you can highlight them with your spirit sight or spectral sight, but it still just looks like a normal tree, which is okay for now. And I'm really hoping that that gets adapted to every single tree that does carry the webbit sap nearby its base, and potentially highlighting the actual sap itself, which would be nice. So I know that there's a few trees around this glade area, but I just pick up a few just so I can continue building the Cogah potion as much as I possibly can. The combination I like to use is Tetherin with a bow that has the slow on arrow hail. Yeah, that's a very effective use of the Phallus ability for sure. Even Cogah just gets stuck in slow motion, then I blast it with magic gauntlets. Yeah, that's a phenomenal setup. Dark Jedi look. The bows with arrow hail slow, even with the new torrent Rune applied, is sensational. Again, that's essentially why I use the Estelle. Very nice. So it helps me to bypass a lot of the issues with the spirit virtue at the moment. So the Estelle do not do a lot of damage, unfortunately, because as what I was showing you guys before, the spirit virtue is just like return in points. So like 1 point will only give you, say, like a 10th of what it is. It's not an actuality of fact in what I'm saying of like the percentile value. It's just not there. It's like, I would say, make it easier, like 0.5% additional duration, basically, which is very minimal. So it's kind of a waste to be using spirit as much as I would like to at the moment, unfortunately, just because of the issues with the spirit and grace pact virtues just not really applying as much as what they should, as they were before. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to jump into this glade area. I think this is glades. Nope, I'm wrong. There is a dungeon, I believe, though. Just down here. Indeed. Germac Undercity. We'll be coming back here in uno momento. Actually, I lie. I'm going to do it now. Because I'm going to do this. Hopefully there's a boss that spawns in here. We can take it out. I'm pretty confident it is the Reaper Dog, which are very fun to go against. I really like their mechanics. If you've played Elden Ring, by the way, you'll probably notice a few similarities, but it's still distinctly a very unique dog for Soulframe. Diddley, how are you? I'm doing very well. I'm doing a solo Cogah run with a caster setup and Tetherin. Predominantly working with the Estelle gauntlets. And also using the Arcstorm. I could switch to the Odia, just for a little bit of extra flavor, but I really do enjoy the Estelle. And the reason why is because they just have a little bit more stability breaking ability against enemies, which is quite nice. And the amount of smite chance that I can obtain with these guys is really, really nice too. So we're not going to come across too many issues. You can block all you wish, my friend. The Arcstorm rune will take you down. Do you know when Avocot restock his premium joineries? Because it's not the 3 hour like normal. I'm not aware of that shifting and changing within Avocot shop. So I would not be able to answer that for you, unfortunately, Dark Jedi. I would probably say, if you're looking for the blessed joineries, if that's what you mean by the premium, I would probably say they've all been shifted to every faction. So the blessed Mora joineries are now in the Kings. The Blessed by Safine are now with the Silent Rose, and the Feybolt are now part of the Alpha's Children. I haven't played in Battle Week myself. Truly disappointed how they ninjaed the weapons experience reduction into the Founders patch without putting it in the patch notes. I decided to log in a little today. Hopefully they change it back or at least rework it. Diddley, I would say in reference to that, there's quite a lot of things that have been shifted without notes at the moment. So keeping in mind too, this is still technically all testing. So essentially they're going to be making shifts, etc. and then adding patch notes later, I would say. So they're still communicating what they're changing. But I mean, I look at it this way. The changes need to be made. The patch notes will be added later. Hence the reason I generally do advise people to add themselves to the Soulframe Discord, because then that can actually keep you up to date on relatively what's happening behind the scenes pretty quickly. And then it gives you an idea of what has been shifted at the moment. With the virtues, as an example, there has been a little bit of a shift and change in those, meaning the spirit and the grace duration are not as viable as the courage pack, or virtue rather. So do keep that in mind when creating your builds. They're still effective, just not as effective and equally spread and ironed out as they were. But I assume what's going to be happening is that we're going to be getting a little bit more information as time comes along, especially with the virtues being re-ironed and fleshed out again. I am just going to see if there is a boss around. Perhaps there's not. I'll just check in the main hall. You got a Gildor Blessed by Mora for 58 arcs. From where would you have gotten that from? I would recommend not spending any arcs on the Avocot Scott shop, unless you absolutely need to. It's really not necessary to purchase anything from the Abercrombie shop, especially if it's to do with arcs. Also hope they rework the Sparrowtail rep gains. I would probably say that is something that's going to be potentially being looked at. It does depend on enemy levels, so do keep that in mind when you're going and running your faction tails or your Sparrowtails. If you're in a lower level area, you're not going to be getting a whole heap of experience. So levels of 40 to 50 enemies, specifically more up in the northeastern area of the map. If you wait for your tile sets to reset, but also the world reset, you will get level 1, 2, and 3 Sparrowtails. Hanging out in the northeastern area of the map should produce high level enemies, anywhere from 40 to 50. And that will give you roughly 1,000 plus experience return. It's not a guarantee, it's just basically a run of, say, you know, you can get anywhere from like 1,000 plus points for running your faction tails or your Sparrowtails up in the northeastern quadrant of the map. So it is level dependent on the enemies that you're up against. Avocot, I got the founders, so I don't know what to do with them. Just be a little bit more specific, Dark Jedi, with what you're talking about. Like, give me more of a thorough explanation. The more thorough you guys are, the easier I can answer your question. I think this may have popped me out near the wizard. Oh, good. No, it didn't. We're right next to Impity Doodah, which is great. So, funny enough, the Dermak Undercity that I just went into, which is just here, just throws you out just here. So, essentially, above this dark line here, which is the Great Walls, this is the northeast area that I was just mentioning. So these would be spawning the higher level enemies within the game. So let's have a look at... this one's Moon's Watch. Usually quite a good area to go to. If you want to check the enemy level, just come over to the township area and you'll be able to see the enemy levels. So these guys are usually right here. So this is the exit we just came from. This is the level area. So these guys are like level 38. So close enough to 40. So they will smack you about a bit. So do be mindful of coming into the higher level areas because they can swarm you relatively quickly if you don't have the right setups in place. So anywhere from level 40 plus, if I run a Sparrowtail here now, it should give me a lot more experience for my faction. Whatever the level of the run that I do, your level tier 3 Sparrowtails will give you the most amount of experience return for your reputation gains. What I am going to do is jump into this tile set. This is a Glades of Andrin. This should be spawning higher level enemies. It's just around this area, just in here. So what I'm going to do is enter, see if there's a boss. If there is, great. Steal its stuff, and then come back out of this exit. And then I'm going to go back down here to Impity Doodah. But also, we do have Marta spawning in, which is phenomenal. So she'll be running around here, near Moon's Watch. So that's where I'm going to go after. So she should stay there up until I take her down. And that will give me the Nimrod enemy, which is really, really nice to go against. He is the randomized normal Nimrod, so he should have a good amount of stuff that comes through, which will be nice. On a Banneret mission, so it's really fast and easy. There's a good build on YouTube for faction level grind, so if you go to the northeast area of the map in the crypt, wait there, do the level 3's tail, you can rinse and repeat for 950, and it always lands. Yeah, no doubt. The crypt is quite a good experience run too. I just generally don't use them because there's no value other than the experience gain in my eyes, but also because you're not generating an actual boss for the agaric mushrooms and potential drops for other things like weapon fragments, etc. So that's the only reason why I don't do the crypt levels at the moment. So my focus for Cogah is predominantly all of the bosses that I can come across and being able to obtain a rune, potentially, but predominantly from the world bosses in Madrath, rather than the tile sets, like this one. But I still come in here just to see if there's going to be a boss that actually spawns. So there's the end of this dungeon, which I do not want to go through. Generally within this area, a Reaper Dog should spawn. If that one doesn't, there's potential for a different boss to have spawned within this tile set. So I do have to go through and explore and see what may be available within the tile set. I would really like that Reaper Dog to spawn. They're really, really fun. Shop. Yeah, he does have the blessed joineries in there. I'm not too sure of how often the rotation happens myself. I choose not to use that shop because it's utilizing premium currency, which I would recommend not doing because you have the opportunity to be able to get the faction rep to purchase blessed joineries from each of the different factions, Kitha Kings, Alka's Children, and the Silent Rose, for their respective virtue. Kith of Kings has the Blessed by Mora joinery, and they cost around 17,000 rep. So what you were referring to before on the rep farm experience at 950 of destroying the Benneret with the Sparrowtails is viable for sure. So I would recommend probably doing that over spending your premium currency with the Adalcott's shop. It's not the only shop that's available to have the joineries that you're speaking of. It's much better to do it through the faction tails or the Sparrowtails, or you can just purchase them from the actual factions themselves. So I'm going to reset this tile set. There is no point in finishing this one specifically. It's the faction cap, still at 15k a day. I haven't seen any changes to that, so I can't really confirm or otherwise on that one. I would assume so, but I have not actually been farming a lot of the Sparrowtails, to be honest. It does look like, from my reckoning, I've taken a little bit longer than usual to be able to get faction rep up and maximized, so I can't confirm whether that's 15,000 a day or not, because I've chosen not to be doing them for now. I will run them sometimes, but not all the time. Not at the moment. I just don't really feel it's necessary for me to run them, because there's not really a lot of things that I need from the factions because of the level of where I'm at within the game at the moment, which is basically I've essentially maxed pretty much every item, and I've obtained pretty much every item that I need, and that's been dropped into the game at current. So we love that lifesteal. It is very nice. So I really do hope to get a Mora's Baybolt Dronery, so I can actually apply these to the Estelle. More so for the consecutive attack, but also the range on these weapons, because they are very good. Say goodbye to your ankles. Hopefully they'll lift the daily cap. We'll see. I mean, I guess it's all trial and error until they get to a point where they're happy whether or not the cap gets increased or removed. I don't know if they would actually remove it. I think from a health point of view, I can see why that there's a potential cap in place, is to minimize the amount of farming and grinding that people are doing within the game, for health implications as well. You really want to min-max? Oh, look, I mean, I think everyone likes to min-max for sure, to a certain degree. For me, I don't necessarily focus completely on min-maxing. It's kind of a lot of guesswork, especially when it comes to calculated results. Meaning, you know, how many points do I have to put into courage to get the maximum amount of damage without diminishing returns, etc. There's things that I do understand, and that's also things that I've noticed and understood from Soulframe. But as far as, say, like min-maxing, it's not ultimately necessary to min-max a build. If that's your choice and flavor, be my guest. It's not necessarily how I run. I run things to an effective result that gives me effectiveness of survivability, but also damage output, and that's essentially what this particular setup is giving me. By no means is it min-max though, and I'm very aware of them. When you switch factions, do you lose all standing? No, you actually retain it, which is a very good thing. So you can level it up, whatever faction that you're a part of. If you choose to rank it up to rank 5, absolutely, that's exactly what I did when I first started. However, the faction XP gains were very different when I first started, especially in P8. But now there's obviously shifts and changes that have happened. So it's kind of figuring out, okay, what's the best result that I can obtain for the faction rep to be able to get the maximum return of time in game, but also the faction rep that I need to be able to either purchase certain things that I want, like the joineries as an example. I feel like there's a cap, it should be 20k, so you should rank once a day. Look, I mean, I think there's lots of different things that can work Jedi for sure. I think just understanding and knowing that there's going to be shifts and changes happening pretty much every time that there's a hotfix at the moment. There's definitely availability, I would say, for those sorts of things to come into place. It just depends on DE, essentially. Like, it's not really up to any of, like, anyone else. It's what they see as viable within the game and what's going to work and what's not going to work. I apologize. I had to adjust my volume. Were you talking? I didn't hear if you answered my last one. Yeah, there's something going on with my sound return as well. So I think every time I'm in battle, it actually neutralizes my my sound, unfortunately. So I'm not sure why you're apologizing for not being able to hear me. what I'll do is just turn the game volume down a bit. So hopefully the sound of the game isn't completely drowning me out. Not exactly sure why it's done what it's done. But anyway, we'll make do. I'll just grab these chests, and then I'm going to head back to the entrance, and then rerun this tile set one more time. It may not be the particular dungeon that I need to run to get the actual boss as well. So now that we've run it twice, I'm going to return to where we came through. I'll take on the imp, and then I'm going to do the mid-level dungeon areas that are near the imp, thrice-bound imp, up on the open world. I've had a lot more success with the alternate bosses spawning within those particular entrances of the dungeons, rather than the external ones in the higher level areas anyway. Like this one. Not to say that the bosses can't spawn. I believe this is where we came in, so... I'd love to be able to drop waypoints in maps though. Or like the dungeons at least. I think that would be really nice. Yeah, this is where we came in. Sweet. And there's another creep. Level 40. It's nearly 2 in the morning for you right now? No worries, Jedi. Go get some sleep. I would only assume it's very late for a lot of you. Sleep. Hope to catch another stream. Have a good rest of the stream. Thank you very much. I may be doing another one this evening. My time, which is potentially around like 7 or 8 p.m. Which will be roughly about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, I think, for most people in the Northern Hemisphere. Diddly, that's a little bit better. I'm glad. I think I do have the sound up on my end. So, I'm glad that that's better. Alright, so we'll go take on Impity Doodah. And hopefully, Martyr is still spawned within the world. I hope. But I don't see the Dorito ship, so perhaps we've missed that opportunity, unfortunately. That's the other thing, too. Once things spawn into the world, it's best to go do them, rather than go into a tile set, unfortunately. Sometimes it can remove bosses, or even just like character camps, if you decide to go to the Nightfold or the dungeon at the same time, or roughly when they've arrived. So, that is a-okay. I'm not too fussed about that at the moment. Alright, Impity Doodah, Yippee-Day, my oh my. What a wonderful tragedy for you. The good thing about Imp, though, he doesn't quite like the arcanic damage output either. And neither do these guys. So, magic weapons, once they're ranked up, they do quite a good amount of damage to the unarmored mockeries, but the armored mockeries, blunt damage is very effective. Arcanic damage is relatively good. The Odiac with the Voltaic damage are very good. But the sword and the shield is very effective against them. So, a couple of different options to have a look at, I would recommend, would be the Rook Staff, and look at the damage type, is blunt. This would work very well, and it does work very well, against armored enemies. So, the Mockeries and the Imp are both armored enemies. The ones without armor are not, but the blunt damage is very effective against them. The Oran Umber, it doesn't say blunt damage, but I would assume from the damage output of the shield, that would be blunt damage, even though it says sharp. So have a play and test around with your sword and shield, which I will bring this just for a little while, just so I can showcase it. The head shots that you can get off with the shield are very effective against the most enemies, actually. So we'll play with the Durglint. It is based off parries for the shield, but it is quite good. I haven't really used a lot of it. So we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bosses. We'll head down to the Kernhold and we'll take on the Siege, which is always fun. So a bit of sword and board never goes astray. But I still do have the Estelle gauntlets on, which are very, very good and very nice. So still staying within the realm of a caster, but a little bit more of a battle mage now. So it's not that I don't like the altar staff, but eventually it does start to give you a little bit of diminishing return because it is a spirit class virtue based weapon. So I don't want to put more points into spirit if it's unnecessary, especially with Tetherin. The duration is just really not worthwhile having, so it is better to have a courage based weapon. The 2 weapons that I've got that have tuned to courage from magic at the moment are the Odiak, and I am looking at transferring the Estelle over to the courage based system as well, which I'm pretty sure it is, but I'll have to double check. But sword and board, very good at knockdown, really nice. Once you get their stagger up, it's very easy to jump in and just do a nice stab if you get there in time. But also just really fun to knock down a banneret. So they are very effective. And headshots, very good. So we'll take on Ms. Banneret now. You do have to stagger her a little bit sometimes, but eventually she will fall over again. And then you can just jump in. And unfortunately, if they fall through the ground, they are not privy to the ground stab, which really sucks. Definitely taking up these mages is very effective because they will heal this Banneret, which is really annoying. So best to take down that little mage, otherwise they will heal not just themselves, but also the Banneret. And definitely being mobile is always a benefit. Unfortunate we can't see her health bar, but that's alright. So that's what you want. You can do a really nice stab on her, and hopefully you can get them in enough that you can actually kill her, which is great. So sword and board, extremely effective against a lot of enemy types. So if you haven't tried it, I would highly recommend it. They are very fun. And also the blocking damage is very nice too. The heavy attacks, if you charge them, just press forward, and you will do a little bit more of a faster heavy attack. And the sprint run is actually quite nice too. So if you're running, just press in heavy hit button, and it will charge a heavy attack. So I'm just going to come through and take out all these archers because they're an absolute nightmare to deal with, and they can snipe the hell out of you very quickly. Unfortunate that we don't quite have the range that the archer enemies do. But we've got other things, like Soul Steel, or Soul Smite, or Pool Smite. There's so many different variants. We've had some different iterations of the different abilities so far within the game, so I've certainly gone through about 3 different iterations of the what the Spectral Sight is, or Soul Smite, etc. So if you start seeing that purple haze, it means that you're outside or starting to move outside the area of effect. of the objective that you're close to. So essentially it means the better red. So there you go. There's a Tetherin build for you. That's extremely effective against these guys. I would also recommend taking out all of the archers and all of the enemies that you find internally within here as well. Apparently there's been a reduction in some of the archers in the siege locations, but I haven't really noticed much of a difference, to be honest. It may be one or two, but there's generally one up here, one up on the rooftop. There's usually one casing this staircase. There's usually one over here, and the one up there that we saw. And sometimes there's another one down there, and then there's two more roughly around the gated area when you enter the siege. So keeping in mind, they can snipe the hell out of you, and they can certainly give you a lot of damage very quickly. So it's, in my understanding, I would definitely be going for the archers first, because they're an absolute pain in the butt. And the mages as well. Any of the red-clad mages, or the white-coated mages, like this one here, absolute pain in the ass. Especially with their lightning attacks, but also the ability to heal all of the other enemies that are around them. And then just mop up the rest of the other guys that are around. I'm gonna be a little bit more effective today. And grab the torch. But as soon as he runs out, Malrog, from this door, you basically drop the torch. But I always bring it with me pretty much straight away. So that should be the entire Kernhold run done in a nutshell. This isn't by any means like a speed run. It's just from running quite a bit, which is pretty fun. So at the moment, I've got about 4,250 Kith of Kings rep, and I've gotten a relatively good chunk of the infamy against the Ode, which is nice. So I'm going to see if I can steal this torch. Unfortunately, that has been hotfixed, so you can no longer drop the torch outside Kernhold to be able to go burn enemies alive. Sad face. I really enjoy using those torches. Hopefully that can be hotfixed back into the game. That's another reason why I enjoy using the Arcstorm rune. Those guys will always block a lot. Not just the heavy units, but just enemy units in general will basically try to mitigate all damage output that you give them. So the Arcstorm rune really helps take care of them. Once you stop attacking, that's when they will stop blocking, and the rest of the rune output will actually take care of the rest for you, which is great. So you can keep on moving forward in a little bit more of a fluid journey, rather than stopping and waiting to minimize their shield output against your attacks. So it is very effective. The Hollowing rune is quite good, so I will showcase that just for a little bit. Don't get too excited. I'm not going to stay on it. For a very good reason. It still will destroy bosses' drops, but against the ads groups or mobs, this is very effective. It's basically a primer. It is something that I've been banging on about probably the last couple of days, and I'm glad that I have. As I mentioned before on socials, it's really gotten a lot of traction, which I'm very proud of, because it's a very fun rune. but it's also extremely dangerous, especially for the agaric mushrooms and potentially any drops that you can get from a boss. So I'll be able to showcase it now because I've been able to activate the rune. So any enemy that you highlight with this rune, it basically will prime them with magic, and it will stay on them until they die. So it's really, really fun to do. You go around and mark every single enemy. It's basically a consecutive damage output. You can actually steal enemy souls, but also, why would you want to do that when you can just completely neutralize an entire pack of enemies in one hit? So it's effective to go and apply the Hollowing Rune to enemies, but just be very careful because I used that on the Mendicant King yesterday afternoon, and unfortunately it did remove the agaric mushroom drops and anything else that he had equipped on him, potentially for drops. So be very careful with this rune. I'm doing a very big PSA on that. There has been a patch note saying that it has been fixed, but I can say it has not been fixed entirely just yet. And that's another reason why I'm doing a lot of solo runs at the moment, is to make sure that I'm not affecting other players on a negative sense. On myself, I don't mind losing drops. I would rather test this rune to make sure that it actually does what it needs to, without removing the drops from the enemies. So it still seems to be doing that, unfortunately. But it is a very fun rune. Like, really, really fun. So I'll go up against a couple of the other groups of enemies before I take on Nimrod, but I will be changing back to the Arcstorm rune. There is something else I would like to mention. This is the Stolten-wielding Mockery. You can tell by the weapon that he's got. But the other one has the Narash Blade, which is also a longsword. I really like that style of combat they seem to have. So this spinning attack, I would love to have, because it helps them cover more ground against you. I would love to see that happen for the envoys as well. And I do like the way that they grip the actual sword backwards. It's very, very fun. So I'll go up to these guys. I'm going to go see if I can get a Soul Smite or Pull Smite, and we'll reactivate the Hollowing Rune, and I'll show you guys again what the Hollowing does. It's very fun. I'm not getting much luck with the Pull Smites, unfortunately. Maybe from one of these guys. Or not. Granted too, because they're level 47, it will take more hits to be able to pull off a potential smite, which is cool, but I really wish I could have pulled off another set of the Hollowing attacks. So we'll go find another group, and hopefully we get a Pull Smite active, just so we can use the Hollowing Rune a few more times before we hit Nimrod. Excellent. Okay, we got one little hit there, another one there. If you do prime a heavy enemy and you've got a light enemy nearby, just use the light enemy as the catalyst for the explosion. The good thing is, these guys still drop their fragments, which is nice. But on any of the main bosses, it does tend to still erase their inventory that they could potentially drop. But the mushrooms as well, which is not ideal. Soul Smite. So we'll get rid of that dude. And there was also an enemy just there. So the AoE on the hollowing is actually quite large. So I'm not exactly sure of the exact radius of it, but very fun nonetheless. And also extremely satisfying. So we've gotten good results so far with the hollowing. So I'm glad that I'm testing a little bit more, but I'm still extremely aware of using it on the Mendicant King from yesterday. I really hope that it has been fixed. So I'm just testing it against the mobs. So I can't really quite guarantee which boss I'm willing to sacrifice just yet. With the chance of the Garrett Mushroom. Get one enemy down to low health, that's the best way to utilize this rune. And it wiped out the other enemy just behind them. So there you go. If you want a full cleaning rune build, the hollowing is the way to go. And it also destroyed all of the other artifacts around here too. So to give you an idea, like the radius of these enemies was just there. There were boxes around here. So I would say roughly in-game radial, probably roughly at least a good 10 meters, if not a little bit more. So I am gonna trust myself on this. I'm actually going to use the hollowing against the Nimrod because I don't need any of the other drops that he has. So I do want to test it and see whether or not we can verify that the rune is actually fixed properly. So I am going to prime him. And hopefully we get a nice little soul smite from one of these guys. And we've got an aerial incoming. Thanks, Timrod. Be very aware, he can one-hit you out of Cogah as well. So, and his lightning is extremely savage, so I'll be very mindful of all of his attacks. I didn't really pull off what I wanted to, but that's alright. We still got the mushroom anyway. Okie dokie. So, there's a few options that we have at the moment. We do have a Dermac tile set over here. I believe that there's another tile set just here. So we're going to go ahead there first. I'm pretty sure it's a Glade of Enderin. And that is one of the alternate dungeons that I am looking to hopefully achieve one of the other bosses that we had popped into the game. It generally is a second version of the Imp. The thrice-bound Impity, I like to call him. And he does have an option to drop an alternate rune. I'm just trying to remember which one it is, because there are so many different runes. I know that the Spider Mums, or Etheldred and Sedgenal, the Weaver, and the... I can't remember what the other name is of the alternate Spider Mum is, but they do drop this Foot Smoke rune for short swords. Absolutely amazing rune. Very, very nice. The Hollowing rune, it does come from the Wizard of the Wastes. So the other Spider Mum, Sedgenal, is just on the left side of this great wall where the Wizard is. Go straight north on the left-hand side of this big great wall, and you will find a Neithan's tile set. And that's where generally she will spawn. The reason why I mentioned that is because Helix Rook, she is also a Soulframe streamer. I want to do a shout out for her. She let me know that that was the most consistent area that you can actually farm Sedgenal. I think it's the Dreadweaver, the alternate Spider Mum, giant spider. So she is quite good, very fun to go up against. Can be very, very dangerous. So if you are doing a Cogah run, you can do it any way that you wish, but every single boss that you take down will make all of the other bosses level up and make them harder by the end of the run. The reason why I choose the Mendicant King as my last boss that I take on is because he is generally very slow. But do keep in mind, he does have basically infinite spawn rates for his little squad that he can summon. So do keep that in mind. But as far as the mobility of the spider bosses, the two different ones, their mobility is exceptionally fast. They have a very strong AoE that can pretty much one-shot you. They can also throw out their webs to cocoon you into them and then do a finisher on you. But they also have spider ad mobs as well. The good thing to note with that is that the little spiders do spawn in a certain amount, and she cannot spawn, as far as the hotfix patch notes are saying, is that the little spiders cannot be refreshed by the Spider Mums until you've completely wiped out the entire set of the baby spiders. So say if she summons 4 and you take it down to 1 and you keep just her and that one spider alive, she won't be able to summon in a new swarm batch until you've deleted the very first amount. So you can kind of cheese her that way a little bit. Now, I've got to remember where this entrance is. I believe it's here. To note, I don't actually really use any sort of extra resources, basically, of the maps. I generally like to remember most of the areas that I can get into just with my own brain, rather than going through any of the wikis, etc. I do appreciate all of the hard work that a lot of the wiki creators have done, but with the amount of content that has been shifting and changing within the hotfixes, I generally go by in-game experience and then just take notes that way, and then basically share the information I learn through the streams that I do, but also the socials. So it is a lot of fast-paced information, so being able to do a turnaround time in between hotfixes is pretty quick. I have to admit that. So it's been a very interesting week, I would say, for Soulframe, which has been very, very nice as well. So alright, so hopefully we do have an enemy that has spawned, or a mini boss rather, in this tile set. So currently we're up against level 50, so these guys can hit like a truck, so do keep that in mind as well. Also, if you do have the Hollowing rune active, you can do a pull smite on a primed enemy, and it will turn them into a ticking time bomb, which is actually quite fun. So as you guys can see, the AoE is immeasurably large, which is quite satisfactory in using this rune. So it does kind of save you a lot of time of being able to just basically clear out all the materials that you need and pick them all up. A level 50 Banneret. Sweet lord. I am not letting her swing her club at me. Absolutely not. But I'll use her as a room cleaner instead. So yeah, the AoE reached even down into that room, and it's taken more than half the health of these enemies out. The ones that were in range anyway. So if you use a heavy attack, you can actually apply the rune to even more enemies that are nearby. I also use one of the rat runes, which applies damage to nearby enemies. So effectively what that does is adds even more effect to the rune, which is pretty fun. So if you're looking to farm essentially dungeon tile sets with this rune, very nice to do it. Alright, I'm just going to come through, clean up these chests. And hopefully, this dungeon exit will drop me out pretty close to the Wizard of the Wastes. Which I'll go to the Wizard, and I'll go to the extra Spider-Mum. Interesting. The map looks different with the offset of the world trees. Yeah, it is. The clouding effect has been shifted on the map. Interesting. That is a-okay though. Now, where's that Glades of Endrin? I'm pretty sure it's there. So we'll run that one, and then that one should draw me back where I need to be. Wonderful. Alright. Good old Glades of Andron. I'm really hoping that this one actually drops a boss in here. At least the Glade style area and the Imp one. If not just the Reaper, I'd be happy with either or. Which it does look like it potentially might be the Glade area with the archway, and that's the one that we want. We've got a nice little shrimp available to us, eh? Probably don't want to get boom boom by it. Or its lantern, for that fact. I'm sure that would be a one hit for sure. Little duckies. We do enjoy the ducks. Hey, creep. Alright. I'm gonna go check down this way. I was hoping for the Glade style amp, but unfortunately, so far, it does not look like that we have access to it. Let's still have a look around. And no chest. But we've got the weapon rack, scrap iron, and scrap steel. So if you are looking for different materials and wondering where they are, best bet is to jump into Glades of Andron, even Garen's Rude. Glade is quite good. The Germac tile sets are also extremely good for different materials, once again. And the creepy mockeries as well. Quite a good version of enemy for experience gain. Not super fast, but still relatively effective. So I'm not going to spend too much time in this glade, unfortunately. If the boss doesn't necessarily show, I'm not really going to follow through with it. Not in this run. And being able to cut down the entire boss run down to about an hour and a half is relatively pretty good. It will take longer in a co-op squad, but the reason why I choose to do it solo is because for any potential drops that come through from my account, I will actually obtain them, but also just for any sort of potential drops of squad as well. So there we go. So that area that we went through for the glades is just in this northern area here, on this little patch of mountain area, just next to the river here. This is where that little bridge crosses. So if you zoom in, you can see the little bridge crossing. This is the Glades of Andron, and 9 times out of 10, it will drop you right here, which is right next to the wizard, and in between the Minikin King, the wizard, and the Spider Mum. So we can go do the Spider Mum after we do the wizard, and then we can do the Curlau. It's a little bit inefficient of running, so I'm still trying to kind of figure out which way would I like to kind of bridge all of the different areas in together. I generally will start with the Spider Mum, work my way along here, on the way down to Kabocha, go into the Imp. Sometimes I have started it with the Grill Seeker Ruthos, which is the very northeastern quarter, and then run down, and then I start coming through, and then worming my way through, doing the Kernhold Siege, and then swinging around down through here, those different tile sets, specifically for Spider Mum, and then I can cut through here, do Curlau, come back, do the Wizard, and then finish off with the Mendicant King. So, as far as the run has gone though, for an hour and a half, cutting that down from about 2 hours, it doesn't encompass every single boss, but at the same token, there are some bosses that I have not been able to successfully have spawned just yet. I will always check today's stake though, for a good reason. A Badagar stag can potentially spawn here, which is really, really nice to go up against. So it is one extra boss that you can take on. There are different varying locations of where he can spawn, but if you don't see that glowing corrupt pool, generally he hasn't spawned. Okay, so the wizard, the Wascally Wazard, will be quite difficult for a few reasons. Firstly, the projectile returns to you. So my magic, he can block it and he can return it very quickly. So he can essentially one-shot you. So being very mindful about your setup, about how you're going to take the wizard down, is very useful. So for him, I'm actually going to use the shield throw. And hopefully, it can almost one hit him. Hopefully, but he does move very quickly, so I have to act relatively quickly against him. But the good thing is, using shields, you can projectile return back to him as well. Once again, sword and boards are generally pretty good against him. You can choose whatever you want, but the bows are extremely strong against him, especially slowing his movement pretty much to a stop. But he does drop the hollowing rune, so I'm really glad that he actually showed me that. So there you go. You guys can get him through the Cogah mode. Just be very careful on how you approach him, because leaving him until later in the run will make him more powerful. So the good thing about sword and board though too, I'm convinced that the shield throw, the shield itself is classified as blunt damage, which is very effective, even though it says sharp. So we do have both the sword and the shield. So my understanding would be that we have sharp with the sword, and then we have blunt for shield. So I will have to look into that a bit more to see if I can verify that as an actuality. But I'm convinced, because of the damage output alone against armored units with the shield throw, but also the setup that I have, which I will show by the end of the run, just so you guys can get a little bit more of a clear picture on what I'm running and why I'm running it. So I'll see if I can pull a smite from this guy. Absolutely we can. Always get rid of the doggos too. They're an absolute pain. And then this is the Neathan's tile set, which is one of my favorite tile sets in the game. Absolutely sensational. The art, the music, everything that's gone into this tile set is just absolutely phenomenal. Now, every time that I've come into this tile set, generally, the bottom right-hand area is where you will be able to proceed into the dungeon further. It's always nice to double-check the bridge that you can cross at the start, the one that we've just found, but at the same token, it will generally push you down to the right-hand area. To note as well, this is the starting tunnel. Unfortunately, the starting area of the map never really generates, unfortunately. So that is something that I have put forward through, which I will be adding again to make sure that we can have that map completion, essentially. Hey little guys, what's going on? I get to use my favorite move against you, the kick move. Also another really fun pack to use is the Garen Rude, also for the headbutt against these little corrupted abacots. But this is my favorite move against them, just kicking them, because they're the perfect height for it. And it's just fun. It's kind of, I can't quite remember the term on what it is, but it's like a leg exercise, but it's like Russian something. It's kind of like the Russian dance, the way that I think about it. Oh, look. I believe this is perhaps a sub-boss. Just another kabosha. Relatively easy to turn into salad. Interesting little area. And we have a jockey mushroom. Okie dokie. Very nice. Always nice to check all the little side areas too. I love these jumping mushrooms. They're very fun. And if you played Warframe, you'd know about Noko. Very fun shroom frame. So this looks like the main cabin area. Exactly where we want to come to. For Siege now. She is very aggressive, so I would be very mindful on how you approach this fight, especially later in the actual run of Cogah. She's extremely strong, so I will be very mindful on how I utilize the Hollowing Rune. There is another option available over Tetherin, and I would recommend would be the Hand of Horror. So what I'm going to do for this fight, hopefully if I can get back to the Nightbolt, you'll see, is change the Estelle over to the Arcstorm Rune. So we'll hopefully be able to jump into the Nightbolt, and we'll get set up in a little bit of a different way. So what I'm going to do is switch over to the Hand of Mora. And this is roughly the setup that I like. I always pick Sympathy because a fast, quick, easy heal from a Pull Smite is also a very good yes in my book. Voided, extra damage, why wouldn't you choose that? Akin, faster regen of all of your abilities. I do have 2 points extra into Smolder, for the passive of setting enemies on fire. And then Hungry Flame, technically it sets us on fire as well once we cast our 2, but it does increase weapon damage, which is fantastic. And then I put a few points into Mora's Pride. I have put a little bit into Grace, more so for the fact of the application of the flame damage and output of the Ignis Wrath, predominantly the range. But once it's bond level 30, you do get quite a healthy amount of range on this anyway. Inferno passed a lot faster, and casting the Ember is very, very good for multiple different reasons, predominantly for the flame AoE every time that enemies hit you. But do be mindful, you do take damage, and once you take consecutive damage, that can be a little bit of an issue. So I will just put a point into that one. I'm going to still maintain utilizing the Vulcan Myrtle, but what I'm going to do for the Estelle is just switch over to the Arcstorm rune, just for safety's sake, because I do still want to test out the Hollowing rune against a boss, but because I have the opportunity to be able to obtain the Flitsmoke rune, I don't want to remove that opportunity of that drop chance, specifically if it does drop from this boss. So again, I can show you guys that it actually does drop from this enemy. If it doesn't drop, that's fine, but I would rather not take any risk chance of the rune dropping and then neutralizing myself out of the opportunity for it. So there's her little web that she throws out. She's got a pretty active moveset too, which is quite nice. So we've got a Soul Smite on her, so I'm going to pull that. And we've also got activated Durglin, which actually works quite nicely. More so for attacks, and then being able to parry. But again, Sword and Board, very effective against most of the bosses. It does give them a good amount of stagger as well, so if you stay away from her, you'll generally be pretty safe. Now these are the spawned adds that she has, which are really, really annoying. So Hand of Mora definitely comes into a good playtime here. You can see how much damage output with a max bonded Hand of Mora is very effective. And unfortunately, the ads will basically catch up to you eventually. And now I've lost the entire run. So essentially what will happen, it will reset the entire Cogah run. So we actually did pretty well. So that was essentially like the last boss, apart from the Mendicant King that we could have done. So unfortunately, our speed does get reduced within any of the boss runs. So our mobility against that particular spider boss is pretty daring, especially being a melee focused build for that. I could have probably sat back a little bit more with the Estelle, but I'm okay with that loss, to be honest. I think that was actually quite a good run in consideration that fact that we were going against the Spider Mum. So instead of jumping back into Cogah, because I don't have any potions left, I do have to double check and see what I do have available. But I will just double check and see if there is another one ready. If there is, awesome. If there's not, that's totally okay. Alright, so we'll have another one ready in 2 hours. I could rush it, but I'm going to choose not to.
Something I said.
What I would like to see, though, is just to see if we can actually take her on in the normal mode. So at least you can get like a bit of a feel for her. She is very annoying. The Widower. That is her name. I always forget that name. So interestingly enough, there is a little bit of like slow with our envoy. So if those little web things do hit you, it does slow you down even further. So it does make them quite dangerous. So effectively what you can do, if you've got Hand of Mora active, drop your flame inside the little tunnel, and basically it will set her on fire, and it just entrap her in flame, which is very nice. So And then just see if you can keep her within those flames. And then basically you can let the Hand of Mora do the work, and then knock these guys out when you can. And there we go. We've got the Agaric Mushroom, and she also drops the veg, but that is in normal mode, not so much within the Cogah mode. She generally will drop the Blitzsmoke Rune. It's not an absolute guarantee, but I have been lucky enough to obtain the rune a few times now. So I've gone up against her about 2 times more. I have done multiple runs. I would probably say out of about 4 to 5 runs, I've been lucky enough to get the other 2 outside of the original rune that I got from her. I think it was roughly about the 2nd time I went and solo ran her, and she dropped the Blitzsmoke rune, which is really fun. So the Blitzsmoke, without a doubt, is an extremely powerful rune. It does do a lot of damage. It does basically keep you relatively perma-invis, so I will pull that one out and showcase that one as the last pact and weapon setup. So what I'm going to utilize for the end of this run will be the Royal Tines short swords with the Blitzsmoke rune applied. Before I do that, I just want to showcase the build setup that I had. So for the Sword and Board, or the Bog and Myrtle, it is tuned to Courage, irrelevant of those 2 blue runes showing as Grace, because you can see Verite, Blessed by Mora, it is attuned to Courage. So that is how I've tuned that weapon, and that is what it bounces off. I do have the Durglint rune. It is based on parries, which I don't really use a lot. So inherently, Forburn, I find, is much more effective because it applies flame damage, which is great. I usually use the Ally. It's a 3-star or 3-leaf beaver. Attacks reduce enemy armor by 11, which is always really nice. The 35% damage to nearby enemies for the Lurker. Alternative to that, I will also run a Squirrel for attack damage, which is really, really nice. It's always a good choice. The Ducks, perfect throws, have an additional 1 in 6 chance of smite. If you have extra damage producing more smite, that's always a big benefit. And then 26% defense against stagger is also quite a good choice for the defense slot. You could choose whatever you wish in this one, but I have been finding very good defense against stagger. Very, very nice. Also within the combat arts, I'll just go into the sword board. This is the setup that I have been using, the Riposte. Interesting choice to have as a very starting one, because I choose not to parry all that much. I'm more of a caster and bow user. I don't mind it, but it is useful for anyone who is a melee user. Thrown off, increased stagger on thrown attacks. Very nice, and very effective, I would say. Headlong, heavy attacks charge more quickly. Always a very good choice. Elmgong, increased stagger on fully charged heavy attacks. Very, very nice as well. Oil Scabbard, increased perfect throw windows. Pointed Greeting increases chance of smite on perfect throws. I would like to put more points in that. But as far as what the point system at present within this combat setup of the arts, I do believe that the system will be changing. I'm just not sure when. But it would be nice to see another sword and board added to the game, so we can actually increase our points into smite, which you can choose to do. But I have built this specifically more around the chance of smite on perfect throws and the perfect throw damage to be able to knock heavy units off their feet, but also bosses as well. It is effective against Nimrod, but also the discharged Nimrod as well. Increased chance of smite when attacking downed enemies or foes. I don't really use this. I don't find the effect is very useful because they're usually generally almost dead. So that's the setup of the sword and board combat arts at present. It could change over time. Yes, I've got lots of little glowy bits happening for the long blades, the magic runes, or magic combat arts, but also the short swords or short blades. But as you'll see, we have enough of these particular weapons in the game that you will have a surplus or extra points to spend within this tree where we don't have anywhere to spend anymore. So I'm not really sure what's going to be happening with those points, but this system at present will be getting changed over time. I do have 1 extra point in magic Smoothbitz is my general setup for all magic type weapons. And the reason being is because I really like grounded. Increasing casting speed when standing still, essential. It's very good. It definitely works very well with the squirrel totem and the 3 flower star in the gold for all the magic weapons. But standing still will also increase your damage speed, or attack speed rather, which is very nice. Scry is also very good. Casting seeks enemies from afar, increase lock-on range, which is always beneficial, especially for the Odiak and the Estelle, and the 3 different staves, the Alder Staff, if you've chosen the Paragon Founders Pack, but also very effective for the Earthroot Staff, which is dropped from the Wazard of the Wastes, and the Gwilyn Staff, which is the now starting weapon of the Oshelda pack users, or Spirit Pact. Cultivate, increased damage on final attack for a combo, is very nice as well. Warding Waves, heightened defense against stagger when guarding, really nice as well. Unhindered, heavy cast strike through the first enemy it hits. Upgrade art to increase the number of enemies. I feel like it should say affected on the end. Essentially, if you just hit one enemy and there's about 2 or 3 enemies behind them, the more you build this up, the more that heavy attack is going to basically have punch through and hit the other enemies behind them. So this is very effective as well. But I do focus in on smite chance for a very good reason. The more smite chance that I have, the more pull smites I can do, the more I can actually benefit from the upgrades of Sympathy and Voided with any of the packs that I have. On Oshelda, I sometimes will use it, I sometimes don't. I believe it's personal choice up to the end of the day on how you want to build your packs and what's effective. For me, I still choose to do it because the casting speed of the Elder Bloom, if you're out doing a solo run and you've lost all of your elixirs and you don't necessarily have a lot of time to cast Elder Bloom, it's not an instant cast, so it does take, say, like half a second to get off. If you have a pull smite available to you, I feel that this is very useful to have that available to you for that reason. If you pull that smite faster than you can cast an Elder Bloom, you're actually going to get a full heal anyway. So it may seem counterintuitive to do that, but that's the way that I look at this particular pack to myself. If either people do agree or disagree with it, that's definitely, you know, that's open to discussion for sure. But that's the way that I generally will run most of my packs, is making sure that I have Sympathy active and fully upgraded with Voided and Akin. I find that these are essential at this point in the Preludes anyway. So just a little bit of a rundown of how I've been building and utilizing things within Soulframe so far. The short blades, or the Royal Tines, I do have the Flitsmoke rune. I can use Amber Wrought. Again, flame damage is also extremely nice. You'll notice too, once you flick between different runes, funny enough, they now affect what totems that you had in that particular setup. So you could think about this as being, say, like your loadout setup for your weapons, as well as your loadouts for your entire kit that you're using. I think this is a really nice addition to quality of life. When I logged in yesterday and I started playing Soulframe again, incredible. Very nice to see this apply. So your attack rune, depending on what it is, on what weapon type, will switch between either utility slot, defense, or the attack slots opening up, depending on what the rune opens up for you. So I think that's a very nice change and quality of life to see that. So on this particular setup though, I do again use the 10% attack speed with the Royal Tines, always very nice. The Squirrel, the Blitz, additional 1 in 20 smite chance. The Pull Smite reducing enemy armor, I find is quite effective. And then just a little bit of physical armor, but I can switch between a few different things as well. So parrying or blocking projectiles add more armor to you, not the enemy. I'd like to clarify that. 35% stagger reflected while blocking. Useful if you like to be getting in there dirty, like with melees, etc. Parries, removing armor, can be quite effective. I have not used this particular rune yet, to be honest, so I might actually just upgrade this one, just for later testing mode. I do not use a lot of parries. So generally I will use the Cleft in any sort of defense slot, just for the defense against stagger. I find that is very effective. And then lastly, I will probably just maintain the Estelle rune with the Arcstorm, just because we're going up against the Mendicant King, but unfortunately not within Cogah. And the reason being is because we lost all of the levels that I had up against the Sechnel boss that we just took down in normal mode. So I will maintain and finish the run down to the Mendicant King, but granted, it's not going to be as exciting, unfortunately. It's still an exciting fight, but just without the extra challenge, unfortunately, of the Cogah being applied. I could do it, but it does seem like it's a bit of a waste, unfortunately, to do so, because I don't really want to just use Cogah just for one boss, which is a real shame. So I will be doing another run probably later this evening, so I will just chuck on Orangol just so I can fast travel down to the Mr. Mendicant King. But I hope you guys have definitely learned quite a bit from a lot of the setups that I have utilized. If you guys do have different setups available to you, like it's mix and match. It's really, really nice to see how many different builds are coming together, and just seeing how different envoys are applying their damage basically through in Soulframe. So I predominantly have tested more of the short blades, fly blades, the magic weapons, and they are all very, very effective. I have not tried a lot of the polearms, sword and boards. They've been very effective, I have to admit. So if you haven't tried the sword and board, I would highly recommend it. There is a little bit more testing for me to go through with the polearms, which is really, really nice. But at the moment, basically have been just doing more casting builds within Tetherin. Ode Tempest as well is really, really fun, to be honest. It is a little bit more of a stagger base that the Ode Tempest now will affect enemies more on, rather than completely reflecting damage back at enemies and destroying them. So it's nice to see a little bit of a change within the Ode Tempest. The Atmosphere and the Astrosphere, I generally drop this first, and then I will use the Atmosphere, depending on situation, but 9 times out of 10, I want to affect the enemy straight away. And then I keep this as a magic little, oh no, I'm in trouble button, and I will use Sizemore to push them away from me. This is the build essentially in a nutshell. Sympathy Voided Akin, as usual. Wingspan, it has to be activated to access these two. Rooted, just for a little bit more defense against stagger from enemies. Lightning Strike, this is the dealing additional voltaic damage on downed enemies. So meaning when you cast this ability, it will drop a little bit more voltaic damage, which is handy, but Gravitate is what I use with the Sin Silk thread, which I'll showcase now, which is, it keeps you extremely mobile. It's very, very fun. And with the Royal Tyne short blades, or any short blades like the Rib 2 or the Unsula, you basically get a free, like, 2 hits in 1, which is really nice. So I'll showcase this one for you now. So very effective against enemies. If you do get the Flit Smoke rune active, it's even more effective. It's very fun. But as far as the Ode Tempest goes, it's not as damaging as what it once was. I can only imagine it will still see some iterations of differences over time. But as current hotfixes have gone and Preludes 12, I still find the Ode Tempest is a very effective pact. Not so much on damage output, but the viability of being able to spread damage as quickly as possible and launch yourself against enemies, and multiple of them. And having the Voltaic Atmosphere and Astrosphere active is very fun, especially with the Sin Silk. It's very, very nice. But it also synergizes very well with the Odiac Gauntlets. Because they are voltaic damage, they are very effective with this pact. Once you've got the second ability down, I will see if I can pull this. Unfortunately, I wanted to get the Royal Times active, but my envoy just didn't want to use the Twin Times, which is unfortunate, but that's okay. We still get the benefit of the Arc Storm, so that's never a bad thing. We've had a little bit more of an adventure getting to the king, which is always nice. So we'll be able to be playing with these little enemies right here. So we'll just drop the second ability again. And you can use the Sinsel without throwing your shield up. It is effective if you are getting surrounded by enemies there. And there we go. There's Split Smoke, and it's now active. I love this rune. It looks very cool. It feels great. You've got smoke all around you. It's very, very fun. And by backstabbing, every enemy that you come across, while the rune is active, will reset the rune at present. I'm sure that that's going to be changing relatively soon. But for now, we do have access to this rune being very, very strong, and just refreshing its timer per enemy kill once the rune has been activated by a pull smite. You can basically maintain the uptime of this rune very, very nicely. So this being one of the probably one of the most powerful runes in the game. But the fact that it makes you invisible, enemies cannot detect you at all. And there's nothing that currently breaks the cloaking apart from the rune running out of time. So getting another Soul Steal or Pull Smite, and even a Backstab on top of that, just a double refresh. And I can also do the same thing again. It's pretty crazy. And then another Pull Smite once again. So, an extremely strong rune. So very, very beneficial for a lot of different reasons. I'm sure that there's going to be some pretty nutty things happening with this rune. But for now, it is probably one of the most effective runes in the game, just for this particular reason. The fact if you are about to run out of the rune, it will refresh the timer. Not fully, but it will basically add 25 seconds back up on top of the timer. So if we look at the timer here, we'll let it run to just the very top, and then just do a backstab, and then it will basically refresh the rune almost back to full. And then if we do it halfway or 3/4, it will refresh the rune completely. So very, very effective rune. And also, if you just choose not to attack enemies, you can let the rune basically just run out. So we've got 1, 2 backstabs, and we're back to a fresh full rune timer. So it does run on about 25-second increments. So essentially that gives us almost, I would probably say roughly about like 45-ish seconds of uptime. But then just refresh again. And you've basically got more than 30 seconds almost for this rune to be refreshed. And we are at Strowick. Also nice to be able to use on the humanoid enemies as well. Not so much on other enemies, but on humanoids and some bosses, not all. Benneret's at least, the non-boss versions, it will work on. It will work on some of the bosses too. I haven't tested all of them just yet. I would like to see if I can activate it against the Mendicant King. I don't know if it will actually work, but we'll see if we can test it now. we lucky and we get a Paragon stat? Unfortunately, we don't. Alright. Big old showdown time. Mr. Mendicant King. Interestingly enough, the Blitzsmoke rune does not make you invisible to the Mendicant King, but at least we know that we cannot backstab him. I feel like that would be an extremely unfair advantage and really detract from the fun of this fight though too. Cancel the king's teleportation. He will transfer his crown to a different enemy that he summons on the battlefield, but then if you interrupt and cancel it by cancelling out that enemy, it will stop him from doing his teleportation activation as well. Lovely. So we get the Mendicant King suit of Rancor and the Agaric mushroom, or Gari mushroom that he drops. So for the most part, that is pretty much an entire run Cogah in a nutshell. I will hopefully seek vengeance from Siege-Now the Widower Spider in the next Cogah run that we do, but that will be done a little bit later this evening as well. So just to recap, we did start with the other Orb Mother, I like to call her, Eldred the Weaver, and then we shifted down to the Nell Knight. We also did the Banneret just at this castle area through here, and then we came down to Webbitwood for the Botcher, and then we came down here for the Thrice Bound Imp, and then we did the siege over in through Fort Colonel. And then we did the Siege-Now Spider Bomb boss in the Neathan's tile set. We did the Wazard of the Wastes, and then the Mendicant King, and we also did the Dimrod, or Nimrod boss as well. The only ones that we didn't find are the one in the very northeastern quadrant, which is the Gruul Seeker Ruthos, or Ruthos, I believe its name is, and also the Fort Carlisle, which is this one here, which is the other siege. And then there is another few bosses that we did not find. I think Gordo, I'm pretty sure is the name. It is a Neathan's tileset boss, but I have not found that boss. It is basically a secondary version of the Webbitwood boss, Kabocha. And then I believe that there is another Gruul Seeker, and there's one other name of another boss that I have not been able to locate as well. So for the most part, this is pretty much an entire run of the Cogah set. So that's roughly within on 2 hours, with a little bit of me jazzing around and talking out a few bits and pieces that did add a little bit more time to the run, but overall it can be achieved. For the most part, most of the run can be done within roughly about like an hour and a half. So just being able to focus on a few of those different bosses that are within, like, say, like the mid-area tile sets, like Sechnal, the other Spider Mother. I would like to be able to see another variant of bosses in the Glades of Anduin, like the Thrice-Bound Imp, which does spawn sometimes within this Glades of Anduin. I possibly could check the Glades of Anduin through here as well, to see if he does actually show up correctly. So I have tried these two. I have found the Imp in this one. I believe I found it in here once or twice. This is the original Glades of Anduin, previous to the Preludes 12 update. So I do find that that's an effective tile set to run for Glades of Anduin, for mostly anything, essentially. But I've still got to go through and do a little bit more testing for the Dermak Undercity, which I will now remember is south of this tower, northeast of this castle here. So the next run that we'll be doing, I will be coming down through here just to double check the boss that does spawn, apparently within the Dermak Undercity. And then I do want to check the Glades of Anduin here again, more so for the Reaper Dog, which is a really, really fun fight. I really do appreciate the fact that we have like a non-humanoid or animalistic, apart from the spider bosses that we have, and that is the Reaper Dog, which is very, very fun. So essentially, that's pretty much like the run. I'm glad I got to showcase quite a few of the different packs that I wanted to use. I generally don't mind using Tetherin if I do kind of want to just essentially speed run. But the Hand of Mora is still very effective, and I'm glad that I showcased a few of the other external packs. Garen Rude is still effective. I do have a few qualms about the Torment healing, unfortunately, but Behest, Stampede, far more effective than what they were. The Ode Tempest, in my opinion, still Sizemore is very fun. Astrosphere and Atmosphere, still very effective in tandem in working together. And then Hand of Mora, far more useful, especially with Ember. Inferno, really, really nice increase of splash fire damage, basically. And Ignis Wrath just causing chaos with a huge flame effect, which is really, really fun. I did stay away from Bromius for this run, but I may be using that for a later run anyway. So I hope you guys have found this informative and enjoyable. As far as the armor rating that I have a relatively flat, even armor rating for the most part. But for now, I pretty much can run anything because I am noticing having a little bit more staggered defense does help you stay alive a little bit more. So generally, I will put at least the points that are necessary within these nodes. I think that's 1 and then 2 or 3 points. So that's roughly about 3 points into Rooted. And I do find that that helps a lot with keeping you standing up rather than falling on your butt, and basically defending you with your health not being as quickly affected as what it can be. So
how can I do better?
We've got the Molten Mora, which is nice. I believe that this one gives you a 6 flat courage points to your envoy. So I just want to double check that. It does. So it gives you courage plus 6. Interesting enough, it is the upgraded medallion, but it is not showing the 2-star rating next to the name, where it potentially should. And then Medallion of Mora is the original with 1+ to courage. So overall, these are pretty much all of the different items that you can get within totems, or talismans, sorry. Medallions. Still getting used to a lot of the changes within the items within the game. So these medallions, talismans, whatever you want to call them, the Wizard's Wish is still quite effective for the reason of giving physical defense +1, magic defense +2. Very, very nice still. It does give you a few different buffs, which is nice. The Cogah Creator gives you 10+ stagger defense and grace +2. The Cogah Lorcan now gives you 2 physical defense, 10+ attack damage, and courage +2 into your virtue. And then your final one is the Cogah Grod, which gives you 2 magic defense, plus 10 attack, and spirit plus 2 for duration of your packed abilities. So for the most part, I generally will run the Cogah Locan just because of the attack base damage that you get, plus 10, which is really, really nice. So it just squeezes a little bit more damage out for pretty much most of everything that you use, but also would most benefit the Tetherin pact purely for the reason it is a Cogah based the courage-based, strength-based pact. So, and with increasing all of your virtue stats, pretty much channeling into courage is very effective. So you don't necessarily have to run a lot of grace. I don't mind it just for clash, but I mean, if you're getting right in between enemies, you can even just completely remove this and then just completely focus in on courage, and then basically just choose a courage-based weapon and just go ham with that. So it will not benefit any of the other attuned weapons, unfortunately. So this one is still attuned to spirit. So it is always, at the moment, relatively good practice to exit out of your arsenal and then come back in, so you can see a few truer numbers of your attack damage as well for your weapons. So this one I have attuned over to courage. Don't be looking at the attunement icons because they are still showing spirit, but I have done the Gildor Blessed by Mora on this particular weapon for a little bit of lifesteal, 20 plus damage. But the aim of the game for this one is to switch this one over to a similar joinery, which is the Fabot Blessed by Mora, as we talked about earlier in the run, attuning it to courage, plus 20 damage, but also the throw distance, but the consecutive attack damage base for the Fabot Blessed by Mora joinery is extremely effective. So I am hoping to get one of those to apply to the Estelle. So I would like to see that attack damage increase even further. As you can see, they are all bond level 30, but the Estelle attack damage is at 110. And this Odiak is also attuned to courage, but its attack damage is only 88, interestingly enough. So there's quite a big increase of damage on this one, but that's also due to the Gildor Blessed by Mora with the damage plus 20. So I will be losing that 110, more so just because I want to obtain the consecutive attack damage and the throw distance from the Fabot. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the run. I certainly have. And yeah, I will see you guys roughly in a few more hours. So I am going to go be a biological human and go rehydrate, have a nap, eat, and do all the nice things for myself. So hope you guys have enjoyed. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I will see you guys in a couple of hours. So ciao for now.